I'm Jim Check with Now Media Group. I'm with Ian Burns, our managing editor. We're going to do these special segments here. We're going to do it as we break down their platforms as they announce them, and we're going to start going hard on this. And today, Mark Carney breaks down his energy plan, conventional energy plan, and he's asked some pretty tough questions. Ian Burns with me on the phone, and you listened to that, and you wrote the story up already.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that we've chosen this as our first one because this is, in terms of the press release, this is the longest one I think that anyone has released so far, conservative or liberal. The NDP, despite my struggle, they will not send us press releases. I can't get hold of them. But yeah, it's very, very long, and there's a lot of words in here, but it's quite difficult. Just like a Mark Carney press conference answer, it's quite difficult to see exactly what it is that he's trying to achieve. But there are lots of generalizations, there's a promise to identify a list of nationally important energy projects and push ahead with them. There's a promise to make Canada dominant in both conventional and clean energy, and he promises that Canada will be one of the leaders in the world. There's the usual obligatory promise to separate from the United States and to become, to reduce reliance on the United States. And the classic, the Canadian classic, which is to have lots of conversations with First Nations and premiers and other stakeholders. But other than that, there's not an awful lot.
Yeah, I think the one that I kept asking about is they talk about this pipeline or Energy East. They should talk about this Energy East energy pipeline or whatever. They don't say the word pipeline. But I mean, it's more clear here because it's... What's that all about? I don't know what happened there. Canada's energy and electricity sovereignty. The East-West electricity grid. And we talked about that this morning on the show. I imagine that's Quebec selling energy to Alberta. Not the East-West gas pipeline or oil and gas pipeline that would be selling our oil and gas to the Europeans.
Yeah, I mean, it says East-West electricity grid, historic nation building project to secure access to reliable, clean Canadian electricity. Yeah, and I think the emphasis really is, as you say, on the East-West, on the order that that's put in, because obviously the oil one would be West-East, really, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And then I think most people would hear that though and say, yeah, he's doing it. He's doing the East-West thing, because that's, people will argue that. And do you want to play that clip first and then talk about it?
Yeah, let's have it. We should say, just to prepare people, I think this sums up pretty much the entire announcement, even though it's just one answer to one question.
Tracking nation building projects.
Yep.
And can you give a commitment to us that you will do everything in your power to get new oil and gas pipelines and new LNG projects included? A real commitment.
Okay,
here.
So first off, Rick, thank you for your question. It is great to be back in Alberta. Hey, I'm from Alberta. You don't need to tell me what Alberta is like. I'm from Alberta. I know this province. Tons of friends here. I got family here. I've known here. I grew it up here. I know. I'll be direct. I'm focused on results. I'm focused on specific projects. I'm focused, and I'm putting in place, as Prime Minister, put in place a process that was very clear. We're going to identify projects of national interest. Any major energy project, virtually any major energy project that comes from this great province, is going to pass the boundaries of other provinces, is going to be built on Aboriginal lands. They will need the consent and the support of other provinces, of les peuples autochtones, Aboriginal people. The federal government has a role to play here in several respects that I have put in place. I've been Prime Minister for 3.5 weeks, and this is because I'm from Alberta, I'm direct and I do things, okay, Rick? And what have I put in place? I put in place not just a commitment, I got an agreement with Premier Smith and every other provincial and territorial premier in my first week to build energy corridors that run to the national interest, to fast-track those. To make that tangible, what I have done in the subsequent 2.5 weeks is put in place one project, one review at a federal level. What I'm announcing today makes it more tangible with a single window, pulls together a host of different approval processes, signals clearly to the province of Alberta, as well as every other province with the exception of BC, which has already signed up to this, that we will sign cooperation agreements with them. And that will allow us to rely on the assessments of those provinces, which is another way of fast-tracking it. So I'm focused on getting things done in conventional as well as clean. I've got an agreement. I've got a process at the federal level. I'm putting it in place. Now, to be clear, Rick, we need your vote. I shouldn't ask that at the meeting. I'm sorry. We need the vote of your readers. Let me clarify that. Strike that. Strike that. We need the vote of your readers. We need to get some of the Liberal candidates, all the Liberal candidates elected, as many as possible, so we can put this into place. Because if I make one last point, I know you said it was easy. Well, the Smith demands, they wrapped up into, I'm going to spend my time writing letters back and forth. I'm going to put in place things that work. Things that work. That's what we're focused on. And I'll make a final point, which is we are going to move forward as a country when we come together, federal, provincial, industry, labor, First Nations. That's how we're going to move together. And I think that we have the ability as a Liberal government in order to bring together all Canadians to get things done. Thank you.
We'll have time for one last question.
All right.
Masterclass, wasn't it? That
Again, the thing that I want to mention is he berates the reporter first, right, and just tells him what he knows better. Do you know? And this is classic Mark Carney now. It is very much Donald Trump-esque. He goes after the reporter first and lets him know that he's the authority, even on Alberta. But he doesn't not.
He was angry, wasn't he?
Yeah, he does not answer the question. Does not answer the question on LNG and oil and gas. Does not, even though he tells you with authority that he has answered the question. I didn't hear an answer to that question. Do you have an answer to that question?
No, I mean, I just to go back, like you say, where he really does have a go at the reporter there, doesn't he? I think and it is definitely not the first time. I mean, people were saying that he only did it to women or whatever, but that was a man, obviously. So I don't think he decides based on whether it's a man or a woman. But he was very belittling there, and he was also angry.
Condescending with him at least 5 or 6 times, even in the middle. You know what I mean? Like he went at him a few times, and this attack on reporters is very Donald Trump, very much Donald Trump. Like he continues to attack the person asking the question. It's a question that Albertans want to know and Canadians want to know. We're in this place because of 10 years of suppression of our natural wealth, and he won't answer the question because it's this question that most Canadians want an answer to. And then he actually asks them for his vote or tells his leaders or his readers that they need to vote. Like, what is that? Like, what is that?
Yeah, but I mean, I think you're right to say that this is a question that most Canadians want an answer to, and that's not just people in Alberta who want more pipelines. I think it's also true of people in Montreal and Vancouver. They don't want more pipelines. They also want an answer. So I think like this guy, he was a local reporter, so he kind of he focused on the Alberta side, and he said, he was saying things you could just about hear in the background because his mic was sort of cut off. But he says like Albertans want a direct answer. So that's what really triggered Carney, and that's when he said like, look, don't tell me about Alberta. I grew up in Alberta and all the rest of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's ironic because in his answer he said, I'm from Alberta and that's why I've answered this question directly, but he completely failed to answer it directly. He did not provide a direct response. He just said the usual sort of waffle words about I'm going to work with First Nations, I'm going to work with the premiers, I'm pragmatic and I do things. It's kind of, fair enough. That is one way to describe your political personality, and that is kind of interesting, or at least it was the first time I heard him say that. But that is not a direct answer to the question. The man's question was very clear. He said, will you do everything in your power to get more oil and gas pipelines in Alberta? And he did not answer that question.
And the other slip there is that he's working with the premiers, Danielle Smith and David Eby and that, and he goes on to saying how he's working with them. But then he goes and he kind of slips and says, I already have the deal signed with BC, because I'm doubting Danielle Smith is going to sign anything that hinders oil and gas production and LNG. I mean,
Well, she's made very clear that she won't touch anything like that.
This energy east, no, it's energy east-west, which is electricity to Alberta as opposed to oil and gas to the east. And that is it. To me, the non-answer is the answer. And filling it with a bunch of things where some reporters might pick up and say he's very clear in what he's going to do about energy. He's going to do all these studies. He's going to do all this thing. I didn't get clarity out of it. And I went to school. I figured out clarity. And I bet you most Albertans didn't go to Harvard. Most Albertans have been working their whole lives and didn't live in New York and different places. And they can understand when there's a clear answer. And then when they're being Harvarded, with a bunch of mumbo jumbo word salad.
Yeah, I almost feel like you're giving him, you're bigging him up too much there. You're glorifying what he did too much. It was almost like, it was a word salad, and it was a kind of evasion and a dodge that I think does discredit to him, actually, as a politician, which is what he is now. He needs to remember that, I think. He did a very bad job as a politician. Not just in a kind of like as an Albertan, as a normal man or whatever. He did a bad job as a politician because he didn't really please anybody with that. I can't imagine the Green constituency of his own party. I can't imagine that they were delighted to hear what he said there. Because earlier on as well, he said he wants Canada to dominate the market for conventional energy. So he basically said he wants Canada to dominate the oil and gas market. So he said stuff there to alienate the Green types, but then he's also alienated Albertans and people who are pro-energy, because he just spoke for 5 minutes when he was asked a question, and the person that asked the question said, "Please be direct." So he's kind of alienated two groups there.
Yeah, I think when he uses the word conventional, he's speaking mostly about electricity. He's not speaking about oil and gas and LNG. That's why he uses the word conventional instead of, he doesn't use the words oil and gas and LNG and talking about building and expanding those. He talks about how we need to be clean. He talks about how we need to be green. He talks about how they need to do better. It does not answer the question. Canada's economics are poor because they've suppressed our natural resources for 10 years. It takes 20 years to get a mine going. We've have one customer. We've been selling our oil and gas at a discount, Western Canadian Select, because we have no other markets. And as pointed out this morning when we did our show, because Mark Carney was one of the people that spoke out against the Northern Gateway pipeline. And that would have given us access to the Asian market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and that would have been more access to the Asian market, and then NGS would have been more access to the European markets. Like, we really had the world at our feet there, didn't we?
Because I mean, he's been asked this question plenty of times. That's why this reporter asked it in a direct way. And in no way did he get a direct answer, even though Mark Carney said, "I'm direct." That is the biggest spoof of all. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
saying,
he wouldn't
I'm
do
direct.
very well. He wouldn't do very well as a writer of fiction, because he's you're supposed to, when you write a story, it's supposed to be show, don't tell. But he's very much tell, isn't it? He's always like, I'm direct, I'm this, I'm that. It's like, but you have to show me.
Don't
You can't just tell me that's what you are.
Don't tell me about Alberta.
No, that's look, I had a quick look on around Twitter just now before we came on here, and I saw that Pierre Poilievre has already jumped on this. He's already I think that little clip there that we just played, that's going to get a lot of airtime, I imagine, on the internet, at least in the next couple of weeks. Because I think that was a gaffe that kind of, we've been looking, haven't we, for a very long time. We've been looking for some kind of certainty and clarity on his attitude, specifically to oil and gas. And I think, credit to that fella. I think he's from the Calgary Sun or something like that. Credit to him for asking that question, because that was a very important question.
That was the question I wanted to ask. It was the right way to phrase it. Yeah, that's the question I wanted to ask forever. Just answer that question. And your non-answer is the answer as well. We're going to do this on all these platforms. On everybody's platform. We're going to try and do this. We might do 2 or 3 a day as they drop them. We're going to do if we see something drop from the Conservatives, we're going to try and catch up on some of them too, because there's a lot of stuff out there. And word salad is not really what we're looking for. We're looking for clarity. People are looking for clarity. They're looking for answers because he's right. All these people want your vote right now. Every one of them want your vote. And you deserve clarity. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get to clarity. And anything else you want to add there before we sign off on this quick little segment?
Yeah, I would just keep an eye on this subject, because this is in the political world, the way that the people that do this for a living, they know that this is a weak point for Mark Carney. They knew that already. And now that he's kind of stepped in it a little bit, they're going to attack even more, I think. So I would say get ready to hear a lot more about this. And his opponents are going to ask this question relentlessly.
Let me be clear. I'll say this directly because I know Canada. I won't be. That was as clear as mud, and I think that speaks volumes. And there you go.
Yeah, I think if you were watching that and you were very pro oil, very pro gas or whatever, you listen to that, I can just imagine that your heart must have just sank. It must have just fallen out of your chest.
I can tell you right now, most Albertans, he didn't win over a lot of Albertans with that. Nor a lot of, again, Alberta's oil and gas, the number one contributor to Canada's GDP, the number one contributor to Canada's GDP. That's at a 30% discount. Imagine if we could sell it at world prices, what that would mean for Canada. What that would actually mean for Canada. There you go. That's it for this topic. We do thank you for watching Now Media. We're going to do more of these platform breakdowns and for election 2025.